Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of From BA to Broadway, your premier showbiz education podcast. You know who it is. It's your host, Mr. Brennan Stefanik, and I am bringing you those general programming reminders. Folks, every Monday we are here with the main episodes, and every Friday we are here with our mini-series In the Spotlight. And, would you look at that? Today is Friday. I, of course, am not here alone. I could never do this alone. I am here with our Broadway historian, the one and only Mr. Daniel J. Solly. Danny, what's going on?
Happy Friday.
TGIF, am I right?
TGI motherfucking F.
Whoa. Okay.
How was your week?
It's been fine, you know. I'm still getting over this little illness that I have. It's really
Oh my God.
It's really taking its time. I don't know what's up, what's going around, but I know I'm not the only one, so that makes me feel a little better.
It's true. Like any seasonal change just fucks everyone up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the lingering situation is, but a lot of people are really, it's like, I don't know, like a 2-week thing so far, and I'm really over it. I really am.
Bear.
Yeah.
Folks, tonight I'm seeing Smash on Broadway.
Whoa.
I guess by the time this episode airs, I will have seen
Yes,
Smash on Broadway.
That is true.
I think the gag is that I've never seen Smash.
That is also true.
And the gag is that my dad is bringing me because he loves Smash.
Yeah.
And I am like, okay, I'll go see the show with you. It's kind of like a little role reversal.
Yeah.
You know, how cute is that?
You do have to watch it for real at some point.
You know, he was like, how do you get tickets? And I was like, oh, I usually use like the Today Takes app. And he was like, okay, do you want to like do it on your app? Because you like know how to do it. And I was like, sure. And I was like, okay, I can get us like cheap, like $60 tickets. And he goes, where are they? And I said, oh, you know, like back in the mezzanine or balcony, because that's where I always sit because I'm poor. And he goes, no. Like, we're sitting in the orchestra. This is Smash.
Wow.
And I was like, don't have to tell me twice.
Wow.
Cracks me up.
I'm so happy. I'm sad that it might spoil things for you. I know it is different.
Yeah. I think it is a very different, I've heard they've like restructured the story.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. I hear they're trying to make it less about women competing, which I'm like,
isn't that like the premise of the entire
that
thing?
That is the entire show. But I'm like, I don't think the message is like I don't come away from that being like, oh wow, women need to support other women and stop competing. I'm like, wow, this industry's rough. You know?
Yeah.
I'm like, this is about showbiz. It's not about.
It's fun that Krista Rodriguez is in it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, she also
is she
did.
The only one who is from the TV show and in the musical?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
That's like a fun crossover.
Yeah, it's not the same part that she's doing or anything, but she kind of had like a small part in the TV series. So I don't know if her part is the same, just made bigger or what, because they did make up a lot of new roles as well. So I don't know what the translation is, but I'm excited to see and hear about it.
Anyway,
but what are we talking about today?
So today, in this week, between Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday, we're going to get a little holy.
Whoa.
And talk about Godspell.
Oh my God. Okay, great.
I watched the movie last night and I was like, yeah, we're going to talk about it. I love Godspell.
I really don't
love
know it at all.
It's such a wonderful musical. I feel like people are either like Godspell or Jesus Christ Superstar if you're going to get into a Jesus-y musical.
Gotcha.
I don't know Jesus Christ Superstar, but I know Godspell like the back of my freaking hand.
Understood.
Godspell is a musical with music and lyrics by Stephen Schwartz and book by Jean-Michel Tebalak. Jean-Michel Tebalak.
Jean-Michel
Tebalak. And it's a fun show. It's structured as a series of parables primarily based on the Gospel of Matthew, interpreted with music mostly set to lyrics from traditional hymns with the Passion of Christ appearing near the end.
Interesting.
And the show calls for a cast of 10. So it's Jesus, and then there's the other named track is John the Baptist / Judas.
Okay.
And then basically like 8 apostles. And so traditionally the characters are simply named after the performers in the cast.
Oh.
So generally you refer to the characters by like their solo song.
Okay.
So like throughout the show, cast members are just saying each other's names.
Gotcha.
And so then when you're like, oh, I got cast in Godspell, I'm like the day-by-day soloist.
Understood.
Which is kind of fun. The show is kind of this it doesn't have like a linear plot structure.
Okay.
So much as like it is this sort of nebulous improv-y physical comedy show. It's for the improvers and the clowns and the physical actors. And so basically it begins with John the Baptist building this community together and baptizing this group of people in order to prepare themselves for the coming of the Lord.
Okay. Okay.
So then Jesus enters. He gets baptized as well, and he kind of takes over as the leader of this troop of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so he teaches the group different stories and parables while they all kind of like act and sing them out. And they're telling like the parables from the actual Bible, like the parable of the widow and the judge, the unforgiving servant, the good Samaritan, you know, like all the ones that we know from being good Christian boys in Sunday school.
Of course.
Which I don't know. Were you a good Christian boy in Sunday school?
I wouldn't say I was a good Christian boy. I would say I was a boy in Sunday school who
Okay,
didn't
that's
want
good
to be
enough.
there. Yeah.
That's good. You'll recognize a couple of these.
I promise you I won't.
You don't know like the story of the Good Samaritan?
If just by you saying that, no.
You've never even really?
I cannot emphasize to you
But
enough.
do you know the term "be a good Samaritan"?
I mean, yeah.
That's like a term.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like based on a Bible quote.
Okay. Didn't know that.
What? It's about how like this, like this weary traveler was like beaten up on the side of the road, and he's laying there bleeding out, and like a priest comes by and is like, "Oh, a gross homeless man walks past." A judge walks by and he's like, "Oh, gross, a homeless man walks past." And then like a random person walks by and says like, "Oh my God," bandages him, takes him to to an inn and says, "Take care of this man. Here's all the money you need." And it's like, be the good Samaritan. It's not about your status. It's about like what you put out into the world.
Oh, okay. Nope.
Okay.
I cannot emphasize to you enough how much nobody in my religious education wanted to be there. It was always
Mhm.
just like a class of like 8 of us, 5 of which I went to school with. And yeah, we were just there because our parents went to church and we had to be there. And then there was always just this one kid.
Mhm.
Shout out to Robert. This was Robert. He was the God boy. He was the one.
The God boy?
The God boy. He was the one that always wanted to be there. He was he was always ready to answer questions and be the one to read the passages, and the rest of us could not have cared less.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't some like God child. I was also, taken through Sunday school kicking and screaming. But also my mom was the religion teacher.
Gotcha.
But I also did grow up in an exceedingly secular household, so it's weird that she was the religion teacher. I think it was the only way she could get me to go.
Understood.
But yeah, interesting that you don't even recognize these.
Nope.
Huh, you should watch Godspell.
I mean, yeah.
And so throughout the course of the show, you watch this group transform, like from this ragtag cast of random people into a community of love and caring. So then we go through, we watch Judas. There's like a point, I think in the first act, he's John the Baptist. In the second act, the track turns into the Judas track.
Gotcha.
And so we watch him kind of make that decision to betray. Do you know what happens, right? I don't want to spoil the story for you.
I do know the
Okay.
Judas situation.
Spoiler to everyone, okay? I'm just going to spoil, the Bible.
As you know, I was just watching Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
True, another... Wow, you are a godlike boy.
Truly, literally, before we started recording this, I was watching Narnia.
Come home at like 1 p.m. on a weekday, and this man's just watching the entirety of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Listen, I was editing. I needed something that I could put on in the background that was mindless, and I had.
And what happened? You got sucked in and watched the entire thing?
I mean, I tuned in for parts of it for sure.
So we kind of walk through Judas betraying Jesus. And we kind of watch them assemble for the Last Supper, where they bless the bread and the wine, and then we kind of go through that scene in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Gethsemane? Yeah.
Gethsemane, where Jesus is like pleading with God to let there be some other way, and then, God will be done.
The only reason I know that is because of
Jesus
the song
Christ Superstar,
Jesus Christ Superstar. Yeah.
Utterly God's will. So then Judas returns, and we crucify Jesus. And so the show ends with Jesus dying while the cast removes him from the fence or from whatever thing this production has decided to put him on.
Yeah.
And they carry him out either off stage or through the aisles.
Rough.
And I think the really, really fun thing about Godspell, it is very kind of loose in form. Like, it basically is just like songs and stories It can take place anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can make, they can be just like a group of strangers. They can be a circus troupe. They can be like students in a school. Like you can make the setting anywhere. You can make who they are, anything, anyone. So I think it makes it really interesting because every production is like vastly different, and it makes it really adaptable to kind of any theatrical setting that you want to put it in. And I think it's a really interesting show. Me and my friends were talking about this last night because we were watching it, and I had never actually seen the movie.
Okay.
It's an interesting show because it's like the teachings of Jesus and talking about the parables in the Bible, but it does so in a very secular way. Like, you're not watching the show being like, okay, I'm at church.
Yeah.
I'm like watching church.
Okay.
It's basically like teaching, I mean, I guess it's teaching like the pure ideologies of Christianity without perverting it with religion.
Okay.
And that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that really does.
Which is, I think, why because it's an interesting, like there's a musical about Jesus that's like one of the most popular theater shows, I think, in the canon. But it's not just for like the religious nuts. Yeah. It's for everyone. And it's interesting. The show debuted in 1970 at Carnegie Mellon University because John Michael Teblak wrote the first version of Godspell as his master's thesis.
Oh, wow. With
original music by Dwayne Bollock.
Okay.
And so then in 1971, the show was brought to the producer Edgar Lansbury, brother of Angela.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I think they kind of saw it or heard about it from like the Carnegie Mellon pipeline because it's all about who you know.
Yeah.
And they brought it to La Mama, which is a very esteemed off-Broadway house in New York. Or I think it's off-Broadway, technically. I don't know. But a very esteemed to this day, like, place for new works of theater to debut and run. And so it was debuted as a play with only 8 songs written by Dwayne Bollock. And so then as the show was kind of gaining momentum, the producers then hired Stephen Schwartz to completely rescore the show.
Gotcha.
And so that's when Schwartz entered the scene. And the only song that remains from that like original production is the song By My Side. Everything else is like completely original to Stephen Schwartz.
Okay.
And so most of the lyrics that are not written by Schwartz are from the Episcopal hymnal. So it is like using the text. It's using the Bible and it's using the hymns.
Yeah.
The show opened at the Cherry Lane Theater in 1971 and then transferred to the Promenade Theater and eventually closed in 1976. So it had like a pretty hefty off-Broadway life.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the original introduction to Godspell through the world. And then for several years after that, we had just like productions that were all over. There was an Australian production, a London production, a DC production, a Chicago production, and there was the original Toronto production in 1971. They decided to cast entirely local actors and ended up launching some of the most iconic actors that we know. Victor Garber, Eugene Levy, Andrea Martin, Gilda Radner, and Martin Short.
Crazy.
Were all discovered
crazy.
from being in the original Toronto production of Godspell.
Wow.
Isn't that insane?
That's really crazy.
Mm-hmm. I would kill to see like Eugene Levy sing.
I mean, I guess he has to. Like, I guess he has to be good at it if he was doing this and took off because of it. But wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so in 1976, we got the first Broadway production.
Gotcha.
Opened at the Broadhurst and was directed again by John Michael Teblak. He was just like wrote it, directed all the major productions. Like he was the champion of Godspell for like its whole life. And then it's that show that just, I think maybe it's because of John. I don't know. It is like such a New York show. It has been around New York forever. So they had the 1976 original Broadway production. Then there was a 1981 La Mama revival, also directed by John. Then we had a 1988 off-Broadway revival at the Lambs Theater. We had another off-Broadway revival in 2000 at the York Theater, which notably cast a young Shoshana Bean.
Okay.
And then we had our major 2011 revival. This Broadway revival opened at the Circle in the Square Theater in November of 2011. And this cast featured Hunter Parrish as Jesus, Telly Lee Young, George Salazar, Uzo Abuda, Nick Blamire, and Lindsay Mendez.
Wow.
Crazy, crazy cast. And then Corbin Bleu took over as Jesus for 6 months.
Wild.
Incredible. Like, I saw that revival.
Did you see Corbin or did you see...
No, I saw Hunter Parrish.
Okay.
Hunter Parrish was so good. He's so good. And I feel like he kind of just, I don't know. What does he do?
I don't know.
I'll tell you, because I looked him up last night. I'm like, where the hell have you been?
Tell me, gosh.
So he's famous for Weeds, which I never watched that show.
Oh, yeah, no, I never did.
So he was in Weeds for the whole run. So that he's probably like rich enough to never work. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he was the first Melchior replacement in Spring Awakening. Got like rave reviews for that, like took over Broadway, and then did this Jesus stint. And now he's just like kind of living his life.
Great.
I'm like, bro, come back to Broadway. Come on, man.
Get over here, man.
But no, this revival was at Circle in the Square, which we love.
Oh, yeah.
It was so incredible. It was so inventive. It was so funny. They were just, they did such cool things with the stage too. Like for the baptism, like there was a pool under the stage that opened up.
Okay.
And they were like in a pool.
Sick.
And then for like the song We Beseech Thee, there was like 1 million trapdoors in the stage. They were all opened up into trampolines, and they were all like jumping on these trampolines around the stage. It was like just so circusy and fun. And like that cast was just insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. Another one, Uzo Abuda, needs to come back to Broadway. Do you know who that is?
From Orange is the New Black?
Yes, she's Crazy Eyes from Orange is the New Black. She's brilliant and like such a wonderful singer. And these Broadway people are so successful, and they go to TV and they never come back.
How selfish of them.
How selfish of them to want money.
Off living their lives.
Money and comfort.
Probably happy.
Don't you want to be in a non-renovated, non-air-conditioned theater 8 times a week?
Yeah. 1 day off.
And then what I thought was notable was that the Berkshire Theatre Group's 2020 production of Godspell was the first live show to be approved by Actors Equity Association during COVID.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it is the first equity approved production to come back from the pandemic.
Great.
Which is crazy. They like did it in the parking lot. All the actors and the audience were like did the social distancing like spaced apart. I don't know I think the actors were wearing like masks or shields of some sort. Like I remember seeing production photos of it, and it was just, I mean, it was cool because we're like, okay, we're back, baby.
Yeah.
But crazy that it was Godspell.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I think that because we were just talking about before, religious people don't really love Godspell.
Yeah.
You know?
I get it.
Because it kind of takes the religious overtones out of it.
Yeah. Kind of shows the hypocrisy of it all.
And there have been a lot of controversies over the fact that Godspell does not portray an obvious depiction of Jesus' resurrection. Like it ends with the crucifixion, and then they go off stage and the show ends.
Okay.
And so I think people think that like that's sacrilegious, where it's like you told half of the Passion of the Christ without telling the full story of him like resurrecting. Some view the cast, because generally like the iconic end of Godspell is like the cast takes Jesus off of whatever plinth he has died on.
Yeah.
They hold him above their heads and they walk out of the stage through the audience. And so people are like, oh, they're all like carrying above them. That's him symbolically rising. People are like, he comes back for the curtain call. That's like a symbolic resurrection. But here is what Stephen Schwartz has to say about it. And I love this answer. He said, over the years, there has been comment from some about the lack of an apparent resurrection in the show. Some choose to view the curtain call in which Jesus appears as symbolic of the resurrection. Others point to the moment when the cast raised Jesus above their heads. While either view is valid, both miss the point. Godspell is about the formation of a community which carries on Jesus' teachings after he is gone. In other words, it is the effect Jesus has on the others which is the story of the show, not whether or not he himself is resurrected. Therefore, it is very important at the end of the show that it be clear that the others have come through the violence and pain of the crucifixion sequence and leave with a joyful determination to carry on the ideas and feelings they have learned during the course of the show.
Heard.
That's why the man's a living legend. I don't know what to tell you.
Jesus?
Well, yeah, and Stephen Schwartz.
Kind of the same in a way.
Kind of the same, a little bit. But I think that just kind of hits the nail on the head, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And I think that kind of is where the show maybe points out some of the hypocrisy of like organized religion.
Yeah.
Where it's like, did you read the book?
Truly.
Did you read the book? I think Jesus would actually support.
Did you do the reading?
Taking in the immigrants and, like feeding the clothed.
Crazy.
Like that's actually what Jesus was teaching, but not all this other bullshit that you guys claim to care about.
Yeah.
Ooh. Also, like the show is very hippie-ish.
For sure.
And I think that they maybe took offense to being portrayed as like hippies.
Wow.
Yeah.
God.
So then we do have the 1973 film.
How was that done? Was that done as a period piece or was it done in a conceptual way?
So they filmed it in 1973, set in modern New York.
Okay.
So set in like 1973 New York.
Gotcha.
It featured Victor Garber as Jesus.
Okay.
A very young Victor Garber right at the beginning of his career as Jesus. Crazy to watch. I was like, oh my God. You are like the captain from the Titanic. And David Haskell, who was from the original cast as John the Baptist and Judas. And what was cool about that, I mean, a lot of the cast is the same as the original Broadway cast. So it's cool that we got that crossover. And the concept is kind of like these modern day, like these random modern day New Yorkers kind of get pulled together in this community. And they're just like traipsing around New York, Central Park, and all like the bridge and the pier. And he's just teaching them all of these lessons about like love and community. And, you know, like by the end, it's like funny because you're like, oh my God, if I saw this group of people, I'd be like, oh my God, what a fun homeless troupe singing and dancing.
Oh my God.
But it's a really good film, and it's really faithful to the show.
Great.
Like if you want to like get an essence of what the show is about, watch the movie. They cut out like 1 or 2 songs, unfortunately, but it's really good. And Godspell is an interesting one because I think the original, I don't think this is a bad thing, but I think the original production and the movie, they are physical actors. They are clowns who can sing.
Yeah.
And so you're watching just like masters of physical comedy, like do their thing. They're clowning, they're miming, they're pantomiming. It is like really interesting. And I think it's becoming somewhat of like a lost art in theater where like the singing is almost like incidental.
Yeah.
And I think kind of with the advent of the 2011 revival, and don't get me wrong, I loved it. And I listened to that soundtrack all the time. It became about the voice a little bit. And it's like, you know, like we've restructured these, so it's all these crazy harmonies, and we're sculpting for the gods, and we're singing all these high notes, and it's so impressive and lovely to hear. So it's interesting to kind of see how that show has evolved over time.
Heard.
And watching it last night, I was like, oh wow, like this is where we started.
Yeah.
Like we didn't start from like the Lindsay Mendez like high belts.
Yeah.
That sounds fucking insane.
I'm sure.
In a good way. But it's just like interesting to see like, oh, this is where we started. This is where we are now.
Yeah.
In the life of like a show that has been around for so long. It's been around for like what, 50 years? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever sing in the church choir?
No, I did Godspell. I played Jesus.
But you never sang at church?
No. Did you?
We would have a kids Christmas choir every year. So for the Christmas Mass, there would be a kids choir. So I participated in that.
We didn't
couple
go to
of years.
Christmas Mass.
We did for a little bit, but I don't know. We fell off the actually going to church train after probably like 10 years or so. But I still had to go to CCD. Why? I don't know.
Because you got to get confirmed.
Well, by the time that I was given a choice, they were like, fine, you don't have to go if you don't want to. And I'm like, well, this is my last year. I'm this close to confirmation. I might as well.
I think it was because we grew up in a different time.
So true.
And it's just like what you did.
Yeah.
You know, like we were not a religious family, but it was kind of just like, this is what you do.
Yeah.
You raise your kids in the church. My mom was like, get confirmed just so you know, it's not a hassle when you get married in a church. Because like 15 years ago, it just is like what you did. You just got married in a church, no matter how religious you were.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's an option.
No desire.
But, you know, it is like funny to look back, but I'm like, yeah, it's just like what you did.
Also, like people, I mean, unless you are actively religious, people don't really get married in churches anymore either.
No, not at all.
No.
But that is a change. Like, that's kind of a recent change.
That is a change.
Like, if you go back 15 years ago, like, everyone was getting married in a church.
That's true.
It's he's not going to listen to this. It doesn't matter. My stepbrother recently got married. And if you think that, like, I am, like, anti-religion, liberal, like, you should meet him. He's, like, 10 times farther than me. Like, me and him at dinner are always the ones who are just, like, rabble-rousing. And he got married in a church. And we were like,
wow.
We were like, I was like, what are you doing? This is, like, why are you getting married in a church? That's, like, this is the last thing I would ever expect from you. And he was like, it's cheap, and I get brownie points from my mom.
Okay, great.
And I was like, huh.
Is it cheap?
Oh, my God, yeah.
Okay.
So cheap.
Huh.
I think some churches, like, it's, like, donation-based.
Okay. Understood.
You know, whereas like a venue is like thousands and thousands and
That
thousands
is
of
true.
dollars.
Yeah.
So he's like, we saved so much money. I can swallow my pride and get married in a church. And I was like,
I don't know if I could.
fucking brilliant.
I don't know if I could.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't, but I was like, I see you and I respect it.
For sure.
He
For
was
sure.
like, save money. Both of our moms are happy. Who cares? And I was like, you're right. You're right.
Okay, great.
It's like we're having the reception exactly where we want it, so it's not like anything else.
Yeah.
I was like, good for you, man. Good
Wow.
for you. It was like shocking that like like none of the rest of us got. I'm not married, but like none of the rest of my siblings got married in churches, and
Yeah.
he is like the extreme anti-religion Bernie bro, blah 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 blah.
Wow.
And we were all like sitting in a Catholic church at his wedding, like, how the fuck did we get
Anybody
here?
remember the words to these things, you know?
Like, and also with you.
Literally.
Yeah, we were like, how did we end up here?
Wow.
Yeah. But I think being in Godspell taught me more about the Bible than than my years and years of CCD. I was watching it last night and I was like, I know all of these stories. I know all of the lines.
Yeah.
This is weird. I'm a Catholic.
There you are.
I am.
What was your confirmation name?
Carl.
Carl?
It's a family name.
Okay. Who is Saint Carl?
Oh, we didn't have to do any research into who they were.
Oh, okay.
We just had to like pick one. And there's saints for everything, so there's gonna be a Saint Carl.
Literally.
And it was it's a family name, so I was like, all right, I'll pick Carl.
There you go.
What's yours?
Lazarus.
Was your mom mad?
No. Literally, I had no attachment to anything whatsoever, and this was at the time in high school where I was a big comic book nerd.
Yeah.
And the Lazarus pit is something in Batman that brings people back to life, and that was
all the rage to you?
I was just like drawing connections. I was like, you know what? It's like Batman in a way. There we go. There we go. That's my name. It sounds kind of weird and silly and fun. Little did I know.
Who is it? Someone that I know, maybe someone that we know, used their first name as their confirmation name. Who was it? Oh my god.
Amazing.
I can literally like remember the conversation, but I can't remember who it was.
That's icon behavior.
Yeah, it kind of is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially at that age, like who's going to take it? What were we like? How old are you? 14, 15?
16, yeah.
Who's going to take it seriously at that age?
Not me.
I was very religious when I was little. When I was like 8, I took it very seriously. And my biggest dream was to be an altar boy. I wanted it so bad. I was so jealous of those altar boys. I wanted to do it so bad. But I don't know if you remember what was happening in the Catholic Church in the early 2000s, but my mom did not want her young son around those priests. And so she would always just be like, oh my God, I keep forgetting to send in the forms. I'll send them in. I'll send them in tomorrow.
I was an altar boy.
I
I was indeed an altar server.
And a hush falls over the room.
I know, everything was fine. Our priest was a very trustworthy person. He was a family friend as well. But yeah, that was something that you kind of just did. And I remember there were always 2 altar servers per service. And I would always demand that I was the one who carried the cross.
Why?
Because the alternative was carrying the book, and the book was so heavy.
It wasn't heavier than the cross?
No. And the cross you just bring in, you put on the little pedestal, and then you're done.
Mm-hmm.
And then the book, you bring the book up, you leave it there, and then when it's time to read from the book, you go up and hold the book while they read from it.
Did you get to
horrible.
Ring the little bell?
Well, the bells were on the side of the book person. So if you wanted to ring the bells, you had to do the book, but that was never worth it to me.
So it's like you win some, you lose some.
Yeah. I did famously accidentally ring the bells at the wrong point at one point in time. It was humiliating.
God. The priest just like shoots you in the head.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just so bad at this side. I should never have to do this side again. I don't know.
Wow. I can't believe you got to live my dream and be an altar boy.
Yeah.
I wanted it so bad.
I don't know why. I don't know if I chose to do it.
And I'm also kind of like, look, if you're afraid that your son's going to get like molested by the priest, why are we going to church?
Also that.
Because It's what you did.
It's what you did.
It's what you did.
It's what you did.
Do you know I'm assuming you know the John Mulaney thing about him being an altar boy?
Remind me. I
He-
have to have.
He said something like I was an altar boy, and like everyone in the audience like, and he goes, and a hush falls over the room. He's like, back in my day, it was just something I had to do on Sundays. It was so stupid, and now it's like acting as if you did this crazy traumatic thing.
Truly, yeah.
Yeah.
Good times.
Mm-hmm.
I had those nice. I'm sure there's pictures. I'll see if I can find a picture while I'm home this
Yeah.
for Easter.
Well, you know what was crazy? I went to my childhood church last Christmas for the first time in like 10 years.
Okay.
Because I don't know, like my dad was going to church, and I was like, all right, what else am I gonna do? I'll go with you.
Yeah.
And I like sitting there. I was like, I remember the architecture in the room so well because my entire childhood was spent like counting the light fixtures, counting the pews,
Wild.
making patterns in the like design and the windows. And obviously like churches don't change, like the church has not changed a single thing. So I was like, wow, I remember exactly how many light fixtures are in this ceiling.
Yeah.
Because I spent my childhood staring at them for an hour every week.
Yeah.
Just crazy. It was a crazy time.
Mine is now a condemned building.
No. Why?
Yeah. Well, it just had a bunch of asbestos and stuff, and like it was going to be, first of all, not enough people went anymore where it was worth like revitalizing it. And now like even the town can't even turn it into anything because it is just not financially worth it. So there's just two big empty buildings.
That's just a church.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good times. Not really.
Kind of, though. I like it.
The community was weird. Like being part of church, like that was our whole community. That was all of my parents' friends were church people.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they were always, that's who we spent our time with. We would go to the weekend events.
Oh, that's
dramatic. that was our life for a while.
I think you should heal it by watching Godspell.
I think, yeah, I'm not really perturbed in any way. I'm like, yeah, no, I can recognize the hypocrisy of it all looking back on it. And yeah, I think we all then knew, but
yeah,
I will watch Godspell.
I highly recommend, actually. I love the show. Yeah. I would love to do the show again.
I know of an empty venue that we could do it in.
A real church?
A condemned church in Blackstone, Massachusetts.
Oh my God. So I did it when I was younger. The place that I did community theater was in a church.
Okay.
But it wasn't like, it wasn't affiliated with a church. They just used the space because it had a stage.
Of course.
Theater. But we did like perform Godspell in a church.
Wow.
And then like a year or two later, we like revived our production as if we were freaking Broadway. We brought it back.
And you must have all been so thrilled.
Oh, yeah. We took it so seriously.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
And we took it on tour to, I think, 2 churches in Connecticut to perform for their parish.
That's insane.
And I remember so clearly.
This revival's going on tour.
Literally. And we were all like, yes, this is it. I got to like miss school for a day to go like play Jesus in a production of Godspell, and I thought I made it.
I can't make it to math class. I'm going to be on tour.
I'm going to be on tour.
Yeah.
Jesus, ever heard of him?
You know the revival that was just happening? Yeah, it's hitting the road.
And I remember so clearly we performed like for a congregation at this church in whatever, Connecticut or something.
Yeah. And,
like, again, let me be clear, it's a very secular musical.
Of course.
And so there was like a part, oh my God, I literally remember like the scene, the line that happened on, it was like, it's all physical comedy. You're doing like bits and funny things or whatever. And there's a part where like an actor says like the word butt, like as in like, but like not B-U-T-T, B-U-T.
Of course.
But she slapped her butt when she said it for comedic effect because we thought that was the funniest thing in the world. And they did not like it. Silenced the whole room, and we were like,
oh my God. Wow.
Good times. If you were in a production of Godspell as a child and you have a picture of yourself, I don't know, dying on a cross, send it over.
Send it over. We'll put it on the stories.
Send it over.
We'll do our Godspell picks and our altar boy picks.
Oh my God, yes. If you were an altar boy or if you were in Godspell, send it over. Bonus points if you were both.
Whoa.
And bonus points if it is a picture of you being crucified.
Oh, amazing.
I want to see it.
We'll post it on Easter. That's what we'll do.
Happy Easter from us to you.
Send it in the DMs and we'll post it on Easter.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
Oh, man, we're sick people.
I think it would be a really fun Easter celebration.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Any closing thoughts?
I mean, honestly, book-wise, it's a pretty good show.
Great.
Pretty much like every character has a big solo song. So there's just like a lot to choose from. A lot of fun. There's a lot of different arrangements from the different productions that have been done. So give it a listen. And the vocals on the 2011 revival are absolutely out of this world.
There you go, folks.
So fucking good. So I think, yeah.
Amazing.
Have a blessed day, everyone.
Have a blessed day. Bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
Folks, if there's a certain show you want to hear us talk about, you can let us know by finding us over on Patreon. That is patreon.com/BA to Broadway. All of our principal tier Patreon members get to choose the shows that we talk about every week. So hop on over there and let us know. As always, you can find us on most social media platforms at BA to Broadway. You can find me at Brennan Stefanik.
You can find me at church every Sunday. You can find me at DSauls.
Wild. Should we go to church? No.
Maybe we should.
As a bit.
Oh my God. What would we do? I mean, I would go to like St. Peter's Cathedral. It's fucking gorgeous.
I pop in there every once in a while. No, St. Patrick's.
St. Patrick's. That's what I meant.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Why do you pop in there?
Like if
Just to
I
say a
have
prayer?
family here or whatnot, like that's a stop. Well, like let's go look at the cathedral. It's really cool.
Oh,
there.
you want to know a quick story that's really funny?
Yeah.
When I was in Rome, we went to the Vatican,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, the motherland for Catholics.
Yeah, I've heard of that. It's where the gay pope lives, right?
Literally, yes. And we climbed, oh my God, what's it called? The Duomo's in Florence. The Basilica? I think it's the Basilica.
Okay.
Where you climb like million stairs, you get to the top. Incredible. You can see views of all of Rome.
Yeah.
It's like the epicenter of Catholicism.
Mhm.
Everything's gorgeous, painted, whatever. We get to the top. We're walking around this like the roof of the Basilica in the Vatican in Rome. What is there? A gift shop.
Oh, of course.
Run by nuns.
Are you joking? Of
It
course
was-
there's a gift shop.
I wasn't expecting it. I was like, what?
Yeah.
This feels illegal. Like, there's ever a place
Mhm.
where consumerism like shouldn't be. It's and especially it wasn't just like the gift shop. It was
Yeah.
like the top of the basilica. I was like, where the freaking like this is where it is. You climb up all the freaking steps, the glory, and then you're like, that's a gift shop, and that is literally a habited nun
Mhm.
ringing people up at the register.
When I was young, my mom was really trying to get the priest to sell me on Jesus and Catholicism. And the time when we started going to this parish, I was really into WWE. So I always
Mhm.
had like all of my wrestling action figures.
Yeah.
And so one time I was gifted a Jesus action figure from the priest.
From the priest?
Yeah, because my mom really was like, I need you to sell him on Jesus.
Is she still trying to sell you on Jesus?
No.
Or is she cool with you not?
Yeah, she's cool with me not.
Is she sold on Jesus still?
Probably in some ways, but
Yeah.
we as a family kind of had a falling out with the Catholic Church.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, so we're
Good
kind of
for
all
you.
on the same page now. But
Amazing.
yeah.
A whole family had a falling out with the church.
that'll do it.
That'll do it.
But anyways, folks, until next week.
This kind of derailed into our views on Catholicism. But you know what? From what we could have said, I think we kept it very tame.
Yeah, for sure. We been new. You been new.
I feel like
Happy Easter.
as long as whenever someone says the phrase, I was raised Catholic, it's a dead giveaway that they are probably not anymore and might be gay.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
And until next week, folks.
Bye.
From BA to Broadway is created, produced, and edited by Brennan Stefanik, music by Dylan Kaufman, and cover art by Jordan Vongsithi.